Please, if we could get the commissioners to go ahead and have a seat. We'll start in just a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. I'd like to call the 2022 Spring Quarterly Meeting of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission to order. I want to first of all thank everyone who has traveled here to Cookeville and the beautiful campus of Tennessee Tech to be here for this meeting. Some of us just completed a tour of campus this morning, a short one, but one that is a great reminder of what a beautiful campus this is, one of the best looking campuses, in my opinion, in the state. And we are really grateful for the hospitality that Dr. Oldham and the staff here at Tennessee Tech have shown us. And with that, the first order of business is to confirm attendance. Madam Secretary, if you would please call the roll.
Chairman Cope.
Here.
Commissioner Allman. Commissioner Dishner. Commissioner Galloway.
Here.
Commissioner Coben. Here. Commissioner Moser. Commissioner Scarlett. Here. Commissioner Stafford.
Here.
Commissioner Wharton.
Here.
Commissioner Winton. Secretary Hargett. Here. Treasurer Lillard.
Here.
Commissioner Morrison. Comptroller Mumpower. Here. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is adoption of the agenda, and the floor is open. I'm happy to entertain a motion.
Move adoption of the agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion for adoption of the agenda. Is there a second? Second. We have a second. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify so by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. We'll next consider approval of the minutes from our last quarterly meeting, which took place in Nashville on January the 28th, 2022. And at this point, I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify so by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. For my report, it will be abbreviated because we're going to allow Dr. Oldham, who is hosting us here today, to speak and talk to us about what is going on here at Tennessee Tech, all the good things that are happening here on campus. I just want to take a couple of moments and welcome, first of all, you'll notice Whitney Allman is a new commissioner. This is her first meeting, and we hope so far you've enjoyed yourself. But we want to welcome you to the commission. We're glad you're here, and we're grateful for your service. On another note, we have our student member, Ethan Galloway, who will be leaving us, I guess, at this point. That's right, Ethan. And we want to just thank you so much for your service on the commission. For those of you who don't know, we have a student member of the commission every year, and it's vitally important that students have a seat at the table when it comes to discussing higher education policy in the state. And so we're really grateful for your service and wish you the very best going forward. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Oldham, wherever he happens to be. Oh, there he is. Okay. This room is so large, I can't. The floor is yours.
All right. I think I'm on. Well, welcome to Tennessee's Technological University. It's such an honor to have the commission here today and to be able to show you around campus a little bit. I think it's I really encourage you to, as you have opportunities to get on the campuses around the state. We have some not only beautiful campuses in Tennessee, but some highly functional campuses. And you all get to see sort of the the behind-the-scenes view of that at commission meetings, but to really get a feel for what goes on, you really need to get on the campus. And so we're very honored to have you here today, and we certainly welcome you and hope you have a great and very productive meeting. Tennessee Tech is really proud. We are, by Money Magazine, we're the #1 rated public university in the state of Tennessee, and that's because of the value proposition here at Tennessee Tech. About half of our students graduate debt-free, and they get some of the highest paying jobs out there, close to $60,000 average starting salary for our graduates. Our graduates remain in very high demand, and we're very proud of that fact. We want to continue, however, to not only provide that great educational experience for students, but to lift their aspirations to even higher things than they thought possible previously. We still get a lot of students that don't have a lot of experience and don't know exactly what their full potential is, and it's our job to help them see what those opportunities are out there. And so the best way we can do that is by working closely, obviously, with state leaders and the staff at THEC, but also a lot of partnerships with companies and employers around the state of Tennessee that can not only inform us about what they're looking for and the talent needs that they see for their future success in Tennessee, but also having impact on the students as they're completing their degree here at Tennessee Tech and helping guide them toward their future. So we're really excited about serving in that capacity, and it's just a wonderful time to be in the state of Tennessee that values education the way that it does, and I really appreciate the leadership of THEC and the commission in that regard, and certainly the support of the governor and the General Assembly to help us reach those goals to the benefit of our students. So welcome to campus today. It's an honor to have you here, and anything that you need during the course of the meeting or anytime, please let us know. But thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chairman Cope. Members, I will be quite brief as well, and then I will cede my time to Lou Hanneman, who will give an update on this past legislative session. But want to again just echo my thanks to President Oldham and his team. They have been so hospitable and so welcoming, and we have had a wonderful morning so far. Particular, I'd like to recognize Diane Smith. Is Diane in here? Diane's way in the back making all the trains run, so many, many thanks to Diane. From the THEC side, many thanks to Stephen, Kersanya, Laura Kay, Jeffrey and Ryan were out there parking people. Mitch and Brandon and Brett were serving as security. If you saw some scary looking THEC employees with sunglasses, they were our security detail out there. So really many thanks. It has been such a wonderful day so far. The logistic challenges can be many when doing meetings like this, but really, really grateful for the tech team and always the THEC team. I want to echo Chairman Cope's welcome of Commissioner Ellman. Thank you so much for being here. This is not a typical THEC meeting, but you got everything all at once in today's meeting. So welcome, Whitney, and we're so happy that you are with us. And similarly, congratulations to Ethan. We will miss you. Thank you so much for your service this year. You are on to do great things in the medical community, and we will all say we knew you when. So we are so proud of you, and we are so grateful for you. Ethan, however, is not the only THEC board member who earned a degree in the past month or so. So I would like to recognize and congratulate Commissioner Scarlett on her Master's of Education Policy from American University, which was conferred just, a couple weeks ago? So congratulations to Tara as well. We have a new staff member on the THEC team that I want to recognize quickly. Is Rachel here? Rachel Hitt just joined our team. There's Rachel on Monday, so she is on day 4 as Associate General Counsel, working very closely with Shauna and Scott. So Rachel saw the behind the scenes of what a commission meeting week looks like, and she continued to come back. So welcome, Rachel. Thank you so much, and we're so glad you're here. Again, just very briefly, before I cede my time to Lou, the Tennessee Tech community and the higher education community experienced a loss in these past few weeks with the death of President Angelo Volpe. President Volpe was always such a dear friend to THEC and served as an advisor to THEC over all of these years. He was always such a kind and happy presence when he would come to the THEC meetings and come with Mrs. Volpe to the office and to the meetings. And so We celebrate his life today, all being here together. He would always give me trouble for being both a New Yorker and an Italian whose last name is House, but at least it ends in a vowel, and at least I'm from New York. So thinking of him today and sending his family all love today, as I know the Cookeville and the Tennessee THEC community has to this point. So with that, I would ask Lou Hanneman, with the permission of the chair, to come up. Lou is not only the chief of staff for THEC, but he is our primary boots on the ground over at Cordell Hall from January through December, really, but January through April. And he will provide to us an update on all of the goings-on of the past couple months. So Lou, thank you for doing this for us today.
Dr. House, thank you for that. Chairman Cope, members of the commission, appreciate that. The 112th General Assembly wrapped up their business just a few weeks ago, and that concludes the 112th sine die. And so the next time we come around, we'll be looking at a whole new slate of legislation. Busy year in education generally, but also a busy year in higher education. I'm sure you've all heard about the new funding formula for K-12, which took a lot of air out of the room, but there were still a lot of things going on in the higher education space. For bills that impacted THEC directly, first of all, congratulations, you're extended for another 4 years. That's always an achievement. It was, largely without fanfare. I think that there's a significant amount of trust right now in this commission and its current makeup to continue doing the business of thinking about higher education and thinking about students. And that trust was evident in our hearings before them. Moving on, we had 2 pieces of legislation that the commission staff brought to the General Assembly for consideration. The first one here, House Bill 2606, which has since been public chaptered, was cleanup language for our Higher Education Authorization Act. This, in large part, concludes a 3-bill cycle in cleaning up this language, making it more efficient, streamlining things for students and consumer protection to align more closely with our drawn-down staff in that department. You'll be hearing more about that from Julie Woodruff later as we have rules in relationship to this bill. Secondly, was the follow-up to our legislation in 2020. If you remember, we had a bill to simplify the financial aid code for the first time in many decades. We followed through with that. We came back this year to kind of fill in all the spaces that were left out the first time around. It's complicated language, but it allowed us to clean up a number of things, particularly around dual enrollment and other matters. The dual admissions transfer pathways. So there was a commission established by the General Assembly called the Education Recovery and Innovation Commission, chaired by our own Commissioner Scarlett. And they had a number of recommendations to the General Assembly, one of which was to rethink or reimagine dual admissions and how they could relate to our transfer pathways. And so this legislation was very simple in nature. It simply linked the two. And will give us an opportunity to work with the Board of Regents and work with our universities on finding clearer pathways for students to not just move forward with a degree, but also to leverage resources on both campuses as they do so. The THEC State Board of Education designee authorization, what you will find moving forward is that our relationship with the State Board is a very functional relationship, and it became apparent that having an expert in higher education and an expert in K-12 to share that space would help to make those meetings more meaningful. And so this legislation moved forward in partnership with the State Board, and so I think you can expect to see a designee from the State Board on our meetings moving forward. This next piece of legislation was brought by the State Building Commission, House Bill 650, to more closely align our capital outlay processes and policies to that of the State Building Commission. We're largely compliant now, but there's been a lot of discussion around disclosed projects and also just the broader higher ed capital discussion in general. More to see on this one, I'm sure, as policies come to light, and so we'll probably be talking about that at a future meeting. Finally, THEC will be submitting a report regarding food insecurity in higher education. This was a bill brought by a student group at UT Knoxville to address issues of food insecurity on college campuses. And I think what it's really opened up an opportunity for, as we have a significant glide slope until this report is due in December of '23, to build a functional partnership with all of the community, all of the campuses in the state around not just food insecurity, but how food insecurity plays into a broader conversation around cost of attendance. Food insecurity is just simply one cog in that wheel. This will allow us to really address that issue, but also blend it in with other matters such as textbook costs, transportation costs, and other things. So looking forward to that, looking forward to the partnership with that student group, as well as our staff here in the campuses. Financial aid, this was very front and center for the legislature this year. The governor carried the Give Hope Expansion Act. This was the largest expansion of lottery-funded programs really since 2008, when the historical omnibus bill passed. It did a number of things. Dual enrollment expansion, we now offer 5 traditional dual enrollment courses for students, but more importantly, around CTE dual enrollment, this is your career and technical education. A student can now pursue 1,296 contact hours. That is an entire TCAT credential over the course of their high school career. It's a very real proposition that a student could graduate on Friday and start work on Monday. That's been a long look-forward goal for us. We're in a position to do that, and this legislation made that happen. You've probably heard by now that the Hope Award adjustments have gone up. This is the first increase since 2008. And what we're looking at now is an increase to $4,500 for freshmen and sophomore at your 4-year institutions, and $5,700 for your juniors and seniors. Again, first time we've seen an increase for the 4-year institutions in more than a decade. We also had an increase in the middle college scholarship. This is for students who are attending both high school and community college simultaneously. This next one is of particular interest. We have a number of students who graduate early from high school. Either they, perhaps they are academically ahead of the curve, graduate in December, want to go to college right away, but Tennessee Promise isn't available or hasn't historically been. This legislation allows us to modify our process to enable students to get that Promise Award early. This next one has been in the hopper with the legislature for a number of years to address the grading scale applied for all high school students from a 7-point scale to a 10-point scale. I have it here because it simply expands the eligible pool of students eligible for the lottery. Finally, this last change was not lottery related. It's more of our general fund. Our Student Assistance Award has a component for private schools that allows for an additional layer of aid. This legislation included South College into that bucket. Finally, the budget. I won't steal all the thunder from some of the later parts in the agenda today, but suffice to say, the work of our workforce development team, that being Brandon Hudson and Mitch Curry, this is a real testament to them. We've expanded that to a 3rd round with $40 million for this coming round. And even more so, the THEC originated initiative around Spark, supporting post-secondary access in rural counties, has received another infusion of $10 million. If you'll recall, this is putting money directly into county high school career and technical facilities to beef up their infrastructure and their ability to offer not just dual enrollment, but also adult learner classes in the evenings. Again, a real testament to the success in those areas. Finally, capital outlay, by any standard, a record year. 21 projects approved, another 11 additional TCAT projects. The UT Martin Innovation Hub was approved in the final budget, and then TSU will receive $250 million over the next few years to really build up their infrastructure and address a number of building needs on their campus to really make them a top-flight HBCU, not just in the state, but the country. Finally, some additional investments. More than $385 million in additional monies for research, revising the education resource programs, specialized units, that being our med schools and our Institute for Agriculture, as well as some security and campus-specific initiatives. Again, an incredible year in funding for our higher education enterprise across the state. There's no other state in the union who is making the kind of investments in higher education that Tennessee is, and for that we are just incredibly grateful to not just the governor, but also the General Assembly. But I think really what's important is to understand that all of this conversation around financial aid, all of this conversation around student-centered programming and capital outlay and the like starts here with this commission. And so this commission is to be really commended, as well as the work of staff to make it happen. Happy to take any questions Again, there's a number of legislation out there that also impact higher ed that I didn't cover, but we could be here all day.
Any questions for Lou? Thanks very much, Lou. Okay, we are now in the action item section of the agenda, and the first section is the consent calendar. And there are two items on the consent calendar, which unless there is a motion or objection, we can, yes, ma'am.
Chairman, I'd like to pull item 2 for further discussion, please.
Perfect. And so, Madam Secretary, do we need to do that in the form of a motion? Okay, so that's Commissioner Scarlett's motion to remove item number 2 from the agenda with a second from Secretary Hargett. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify so by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion's carried. Item number 2 will be moved. Madam Secretary, do we just make that the first item of the regular calendar?
I think that you could, Chair. I think a lot of times we take it at the heel of the calendar, but it's up to you.
Okay. Does anyone have a preference? I think we just take it as the first item on the regular calendar. So let's just move, for those of you following at home, we'll move item number 2 from the consent calendar to be item number 1 on the regular calendar. So with that change, we have the consent calendar as it exists now, and I'll entertain a motion to approve it. The motion, is there a second? We have a second. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify so by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. The consent calendar as amended is approved. Turning to our regular calendar, what we will consider is item number 1, which is item number 2 from the consent calendar, the quality assurance funding. I don't know who wants to. Yeah.
Julie Roberts is here. I don't know if Julie can come to the podium. Thank you. And Commissioner Scarlett, do you have particular questions, or would you like Julie just to provide an overview? What would be most helpful?
Why don't we start by providing an overview, and then I'll open up with some other questions.
Thank you. I'm Julie Roberts, Associate Chief Academic Officer, obviously at THEC. So this item is a change to one of the components of the quality assurance funding, specifically related to how we're calculating the job market placement definition. And so this was really, we entertained this as a response to to COVID really, and the high rate of unemployment claims. Obviously, this was not something that we had anticipated when we did the review in 2020. And so since then, the way we had calculated it in the past is we defined success if someone was employed for at least 1 quarter out of 4 with no unemployment claims. And so within the quality assurance funding formula, points were awarded based on that definition. With this proposed change, we would now say success was identified by anyone being employed part-time or full-time 3 of the 4 quarters that we're measuring. So really taking change of mindset from that of just unemployment claims to continuous employment. We're also proposing that this definition is expanded from just not the old metric, only considers non-university parallel associate's degrees. So the university parallel degrees are those where students are intending to transfer. So that would be any of your applied AAS degrees. But this new definition would include all associate's degrees and also expand to include technical certificates.
Thank you, Julie.
Of course.
So this is my question and concern. Would love to get other perspectives on this. We have a quarter of our students go into the community colleges across the state, right? And for those adults that are going into community colleges through Tennessee Reconnect or whatever, some of them are working multiple part-time jobs. And I don't know the research behind what sorts of jobs. I don't know if that's available. But in this new revised definition, we're saying that once a student has graduated, they can either be in full-time or part-time. And what's to say they're not in part-time before, and then afterward they're going into the same 2 or 3 part-time jobs that are not tied to the degree they received. or that is a non-parallel or otherwise. So what did the college experience do for that student if our ultimate goal is to help students be able to access high growth, high mobility opportunities?
So that's a very good question, and a couple of things around some data limitations, and so I know that's not really the question, so definitely I can come back around. To your point, we definitely hope that students, once they have completed a degree, that they're getting a job that's not the same job that they had before, that they're still not piecing together 3 and 4 part-time positions. So the part of the reason we have gone with this metric was that we were really hoping that it shifted so that we saw that students were employed. Some of the downside of this is that we can't track with our current data what type of field that they're in, so we don't have anything aligned with any sort of SOC code or job classification that can say, Julie Roberts has a job. That's all we can really say, and how much that I'm making based on our P20 data. So we would love to be able to do that, and that is the ultimate goal. I think right now, with the data that we have access to through P20, this was the best we could do to try to get to that. So it's kind of a non-answer, but.
It strikes me that moving someone from a part-time job before they go to college and then saying success is putting them back into a part-time job after college. I don't know there's enough information. Maybe it's a data gap. But if they're going back and working in fast food before and after the college experience, what's the value of going to college?
And Julie, I'm happy to comment on that. So to Julie's point about the data limitation, we are actually able to see overarching area of employment. So for example, we would be able to see that Emily House is employed in healthcare, but cannot see whether I am a doctor or I am working in the cafeteria at that hospital. So we do have some high level of information about field or industry, but not specifics to the point that you are mentioning. I think it is the case that some of these students are working part-time in field, but that is not the case for everyone. So I think we go to this example, and your example is a very good one, about a student who was working to get through college and then is just staying in that job upon graduation. That is, we're able to capture a little bit more than that, including a part-time metric, but that does not take away from your point about what is the gain if that is not the case for a student. I don't know if that's helpful.
It doesn't change the reality. But I mean, it's a helpful perspective. If we want students to go to community colleges to be able to advance with an associate's degree or whatever technical degree, isn't it part of the responsibility for us to be able to place them into jobs? Or is that not the responsibility of colleges?
I think everyone here would say yes. I think this is a next step to improving a metric that was flawed given the goings-on of COVID. I think this is a step toward the conversation that we are having now and that we need to have more broadly. I think this was in response just to the unpredictability of what has happened in the past few years, the lack of predictability there.
To Commissioner Scarlett's point, do we have any sense of when we would have better or more data to be able to distinguish whether or not the job that the student or the graduate is going into is better or different from the one they had before?
I'm looking to some of my P20 folks.
So I think, Stephen, you're welcome to make your way up there, but I'll take a crack at this, or Crystal. I think one of the key indicators is going to be this field of employment. So we may be able, to Commissioner Scarlett's point, we may be able to see that someone was working in hospitality and then upon graduation is working in healthcare with a degree in biology. So we can sort of proxy, but we cannot see this person is working in this hospital doing this. So I think we are closer than maybe it seems, but it's never going to be perfect. And Crystal, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Thank you, Dr. House. Crystal Collins, Senior Director of Fiscal Policy. Commissioner Scarlett, I think these types of conversations will help us strengthen our partnership with the Department of Labor, who is the one overseeing this information, to make sure that they understand that these are data needs that we need answers to, so they can start collecting this information from the employers. So we just need to strengthen those partnerships between the P20, our longitudinal data system, and the Department of Labor, so that they understand that that's worth collecting, so that it can be informative to us. So as Dr. House said, I think this is the first step towards that, to be able to have that information. Speaking as someone who oversees the funding formula, I want that so that I can actually measure that information, because I understand your point and your question, and I want to be able to answer that question for you.
Secretary Hargett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have anybody from Tennessee Board of Regents here? I think this was brought forward as a result of some conversations from them. Would love to hear their take on it.
Dr. Deaton.
Good morning, Chairman Cope, Mr. Secretary, members of the Commission.
Morning.
Russ Deaton, Tennessee Board of Regents, Executive Vice Chancellor for Policy and Strategy. The short version of this is that we support the definitional change. It is something that gives a lot of pause because of the data limitations that were just discussed. These are, as Crystal said, emanating from the limitations in the labor data that just don't allow us to peer into the phenomenon, Ms. Scarlett, that you're raising. Given what we have, though, I think this is the best we can do, we being the collective higher education system, to address where this comes from. At the same time, too, thank you. At the same time, too, in the future, we hope that the data allows us to explore these exact kind of dynamics, to know where a student comes from with her career and her current salary, what the degree allows her to then go into with a job, and then what that then can be, how you can then see that in the labor data and in the wage data. As of now, all that is beyond the scope of what we can see. The incremental change this process did introduce makes it better for, I think, the Commission and TBR to understand the phenomenon to some limited degree. But fundamentally, the weakness you described, that you asked about, is, well, I think we're all trying to find a way to solve, but as of yet, just don't have the ability to do so. Mr. Secretary, does that answer your question? Again, TBR is in full support of this change.
Well, it does somewhat, and I appreciate you elaborating that a little bit. I mean, I think the Commissioner's asking a really good question, and maybe this is a little bit better than what we have, but we're nowhere near the finish line.
Correct.
On this. In fact, I would argue we're barely first and 10 or on 20-yard line.
Right.
I even question whether or not, given the limitations of data, if it has any place in the formula.
And let me stress too, this is in the quality assurance portion of the funding, not the outcomes formula. Yeah. So its impact is a little smaller and more contained, so that way dealing with the ambiguities of the data are a little less consequential. It's for a good reason, but.
Well, and I guess my point there is too, if it's so small and possibly inconsequential, then why are we messing around with it anyway? And maybe we ought to be placing emphasis on other items until we have a better data set to really be able to do something with.
That's a fair point for the Commission staff to address, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Any other commissioners who'd like to question or comment on this item? Okay. Well, the item is on the floor on the agenda, so the floor is open for whatever action the commission would like to take.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Treasurer Lillard, there's a second. Who made the second? Commissioner Coben? Okay, Commissioner Coben with the second. Further discussion on this item. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none. All in favor signify so by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, let's do a roll call. Would that be appropriate, Madam Secretary, just to, okay.
Chairman Cope?
Aye.
Commissioner Elman? Commissioner Dishner? Commissioner Galloway?
Aye.
Commissioner Coben? Commissioner Scarlett? Commissioner Stafford?
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton?
No.
Commissioner Winton? Secretary Hargett? No. Treasurer Lillard?
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower? Yes. Chairman, you have 8 ayes and 3 nays.
Okay, very good. The motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the Tennessee Technological University Campus Master Plan, and we are going to call on Dr. Oldham, President Oldham.
Well, again, Chairman Cope, members of the commission, thank you for being here today, and thank you for your review of our campus master plan. As you've had a chance earlier today to get a firsthand feel for the campus and some visual impressions of that, I'm sure you also realize that the campus master plan is a very important document that helps guide us in these decisions and helps us make good critical decisions along the way. You probably also realize that a campus is a living, breathing organism, and it's constantly changing and very dynamic in quality. And that's really intentional, and that's the way it should be, because the educational experiences for students should continually be refreshed and energized, because the needs of industry and employers and career opportunities continue to change as well. And so we need to change along with that. So we're very fortunate here at Tennessee Tech. Our current campus master plan was developed in 2014, and we were able to make substantial progress to the point where we needed to do a new campus master plan this year, and it's before you today for approval. Campus master plan, again, is a document that helps guide us. We want to try to make it as forward-thinking as possible, but we also realize that it will continue to sort of evolve as our needs evolve. But really appreciate your willingness to review it today. We have with us today Gary Askew, Principal Architect with Bauer Askew. He's our campus master planner, and he can walk you through the details of this particular master plan. But in general, and I'm sure what he'll describe, is that we're obviously adding a lot of additional facilities, particularly in critical core areas of science and engineering, but also improving the overall campus appearance, greening up the campus, making it more pedestrian friendly, and improving the look and feel of the campus in very substantial ways. So at that, I'll just call on Gary to walk you through, and then he or I, either one, will be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oldham. Let's see. I believe. Okay. So I'll just provide a quick overview of the master plan and then open it up for questions. The master plan itself contains really three major sections: an executive summary, an existing conditions analysis, and then the focus primarily is the campus vision, and then three appendix with a infrastructure section, a engineering master plan, and a housing master plan. I guess part of the existing conditions analysis was really looking back at the 2014 master plan and sort of seeing what had been implemented in that. If you went on the tour today, you saw a lot of what that was happening. A major focus of the master plan was the greening of the campus, which entailed really sort of taking the parking from the sort of interior campus parking and moving it to perimeter, or eliminating parking and vehicular access through the core of the campus. If you went through the labs, major buildings of the master plan were a lab science commons, which really implemented a lot of the features of the master plan, which was greening the campus, which took a 750-car parking lot, turned it into a green space, and added a lab science building. Also, on the front corner of the campus, sort of establishing the front corner and front entry of the campus, was a student rec center, which you saw, and then components that will be, I guess the next steps are developing an engineering building and an innovation center and housing on the central portion of the campus. The campus vision itself is really the primary portion of the master plan. It really sort of outlines sort of three horizons, sort of addressing current needs for the campus, then allowing the campus to grow to 12,000, or grow back to 12,000, and then grow beyond that to a 15,000 student campus. This is really the campus as it exists today, and you can sort of see the central piece that's sort of shaded in. Those are the two projects that are under construction: a new engineering building and the innovation center and campus housing, or student housing. The 12,000 student master plan really sort of outlines 29 different projects. The ones in purple are new buildings. The ones in gold are renovations of buildings. The top 6, I guess the top third, are buildings that are projects that are really trying to catch up to get the campus up to fulfilling current needs. The next, I guess, third are buildings that would really sort of allow the campus to grow to a 12,000 student campus. The bottom third are our capital outlay, they are disclosed projects, and those are listed not necessarily in chronological or priority, but they are projects that really address student services, housing, athletics, and really parking garages. I guess to focus on really, I guess the top 6. The first and second one are projects that were funded, or I guess will be funded next month with the new state budget. The third project was a building that we walked through. That the first stop on the tour was at Matthews Daniels, which is tearing down a very antiquated building or pair of buildings and renovating an existing building to become a new academic classroom building. That will be likely the project that you'll see submitted next year. The year after that will be the renovations of Brown and Prescott. So two of the major engineering buildings, existing engineering buildings on campus that are pretty much the way they were 50 plus years ago. So they're very much in need of updating. And then the sixth one would be a renovation of Memorial Gym. Let's see. The the feature projects on the disclosed projects, number 20 is the renovation of this building, which, replace a university center, sort of addressing a university center needs. That one, we've described it here as a renovation addition. It very well may be a new building. That is still to be programmed and will be an evolving as a near-term project to be disclosed. The further horizon is addressing the campus as it grows beyond 12,000 to 15,000, and you can see here primarily addressing new buildings numbered around the campus, several parking garages, and new academic buildings to allow the campus to grow to that 12,000 or 15,000 student horizon. For those that aren't as good at plans as they are just at seeing the picture, this is sort of trying to bring that to life a little bit. This is the existing, this is a portion of the engineering master plan, and a picture of the engineering quad as it exists now. So the primary existing engineering quad, and then buildings across the street in the smaller rectangle are buildings that would be replaced with this next engineering building, which taking a 100-plus-year-old building for advanced manufacturing and replacing it with a new construction and advanced manufacturing building. And then the Library Source Science Commons, you can sort of see that that whole central square was the 750-car parking lot that is now green space, which really is sort of the keynote of the master plan, which is creating green space out of surface parking to a great degree. So this is sort of stepping forward, 4 phases into the engineering master plan, and really sort of how that would evolve. On the far left, you can sort of see the engineering building that's under construction now, which is an addition of space. On the bottom of the page, you can sort of see an advanced construction and manufacturing engineering building, which is the building that would be in this upcoming budget. That is really a replacement of a lot of poor space on campus or demolition of buildings. So it is a slight net gain in square footage. So those are really trying to catch the engineering program back up to, this current century's buildings. And then renovations of Brown and Prescott really sort of bring the engineering program along. You can sort of see on the top and bottom parking garages that we're really trying to take the perimeter parking and then sort of densify the parking on campus. And then on the upper right-hand side, you can sort of see the evolution of the green spaces and the interconnection of quadrangles throughout the campus. And that is a quick overview of the master plan.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Questions about the master plan? Great, don't see any. Thank you very much. So the floor is open at this point. The item under consideration is the approval of the Tennessee Tech University Campus Master Plan. A motion for approval, Commissioner Scarlett, is there a second? Second from Secretary Hargett. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify so by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Master plan is approved. Congratulations. The next item on our agenda is the 2020-2025 Outcomes-Based Funding Formula Recommendation. Crystal Collins.
For the short people. Thank you, Chairman Cope. Good morning, members of the Commission. I'm pleased to bring before you today recommended changes to the 2025 outcomes-based funding formula. These changes are a culmination of over 2 years of work involving many members of the THEC team, institutional representatives, including institutional presidents. Thank you, President Oldham, for participating. Chief fiscal officers from institutions, as well as government officials, including legislators and representatives of the governor's office, and of course, all of you, members of the commission. And it's truly been a team effort. I'm very thankful to everyone who has provided their assistance to get us to where we are today. As a brief reorientation of where we are in the review process, today marks the third time staff have been before you to discuss changes to the 2025 formula. Since we last spoke in November, THEC presented these recommended changes that we spoke to you about at that time to both the House and Senate Education and Finance Ways and Means Committees for review and recommendation as outlined in our statute. Discussion with these committees was robust and resulted in no requested changes to the recommendations I'm bringing forward to you today. Any changes or revisions approved today will be used to request data from the institutions in the coming months and will be implemented to calculate the FY 2024 budget recommendation to be presented to you in November and transmitted to the governor and other state stakeholders in December of this year. Over the next couple slides, I will summarize the recommended changes, all of which were discussed in greater detail in your materials today, and will provide context from the working group, the official Formula Review Committee, and our legislative committee conversations. Please do not hesitate to interrupt if you have any specific questions or additional thoughts. That was very quick. Okay, workforce investment premium. This is the first recommended change we're bringing today. In response to a request from the governor's office to better align the funding formula with statewide workforce needs, this premium will provide additional funding to universities and community colleges for undergraduate degrees and certificates produced in certain high-need academic fields, including computer and information sciences, engineering, math and statistics, and health professions. There was general agreement from all stakeholders to recognize degrees and certificates in these high-need academic fields in the funding formula. Feedback received generally focused on the majors and the degrees identified for inclusion in this metric. And as an example, the University of Memphis recently reached out to express a desire to include graduate degrees in this metric. Their reason for doing that, or for requesting that, was mentioning job growth, requiring advanced degrees, and the fact that those programs are of a higher cost to the institutions. TX staff are recommending at this time, however, to limit the premium to undergraduate programs only for several reasons, including to promote simplicity and understandability of the model by remaining in alignment with how the current focus populations already operate, to allow our staff, THEC staff, to monitor how institutions respond to this additional premium, before considering expanding it, and to continue to incentivize institutions to focus on the goals of the Drive to 55 and the statewide master plan, which up until this point have continued to prioritize undergraduate education as we look towards graduate education. Related to identifying majors qualifying as high need, we received feedback from stakeholders, including Commissioner Dishner, in November, requesting additional clarification on the process for how we married high need fields and statewide workforce needs. TX staff had committed to reviewing this definition that we're requesting approval of today as part of each of the 5-year review process, which interestingly will be in 2025, so not quite 5 years since we're a little late this year. with the caveat that any omission will be addressed as soon as possible. So if something comes up in any time between now and 2025, we will take that on as part of our annual review and incorporate that change into the formula related to this definition. This will allow THEC to expand the definition to meet changing workforce needs or to recognize refinements to the methodology for identifying a high-need job. To your point, Commissioner Dishner, to allow us to better quantify the state need for educators should that become available. Moving on to the second change, THEC staff are recommending a definitional change to the workforce training contact hours outcome in our community college sector. This is different from the workforce investment premium. So this metric reports non-credit activities in which community colleges are partnering with local businesses, industry, and other stakeholders to provide training and upskilling for local residents. Under the current workforce training outcome definition, some colleges have rightfully, because again, within the current purview of the definition, been reporting both primary and secondary hours related to students who achieve certified trainer status. So as an example, a college reports the completion of several non-credit courses completed by an individual that results in the designation as a certified safety official. That person, that's the primary activity, so the certification of that individual. That certified safety official then goes out and provides training to individuals, the whole point of him becoming a certified safety official. For instance, to meet OSHA requirements on a job site or provide CPR instruction to a local church. These secondary activities have also been reported by the community colleges in this training report. During conversations with the FRC, there was general agreement with this recommended definitional change to the workforce metric to remove these secondary hours while continuing to count the primary activities. THEC did not receive any other additional feedback from legislators or members of the FRC indicating disagreement with this recommended change. Therefore, THEC staff are recommending that while the primary activities, the training that designated a certified trainer, should be continued to be counted in this report, the secondary activities, the training that those trainers then provide out in the world, should be excluded. Our third recommendation is related to one of our components of the funding formula, the fixed cost component. This is probably the one that we've talked about the most over the last 2 years of the recommended changes we're making. So the current fixed cost policy provides additional funding to institutions when a new building is brought online. And this ameliorates the burden of startup costs for these campuses. However, due to the overall mechanics of the formula, which is a growth model, which incentivizes growth, institutions are also rewarded for keeping potentially unnecessary space online and are disincentivized from renovating older space because they receive a premium in the current fixed cost metric. This focus on growth contradicts other THEC policies, including our capital outlay and maintenance policies, which prioritizes renovation of existing space and efficiency in usage of current space. So in response to that, THEC staff began the formula review process by recommending completely removing this metric immediately in this 5-year cycle. However, after extensive conversations with institutional representatives, legislators, and other government partners, what we're instead recommending today is to take an incremental approach to address this concern by recommending a streamlining of the component as well as a reduction of the influence of that component on the rest of the formula. So what that would mean is we would limit the fixed cost expenditure calculation to square footage only. So say this building, right? And only square footage for education and general purposes. So classrooms, offices, things that are supporting the operation of the institution, but not auxiliary spaces, not dorms, not dining facilities, which we have never counted in the formula. And we would also look at equipment replacement value. So again, the state would be providing funds to institutions to allow them to replace equipment as it gets older. So by streamlining to those measures and then also reducing the fixed cost component, which in the current version of the model is at about 22%, which is based on a historical calculation, and reducing that to 15%. This reduced fixed cost constant would ensure that outcomes account for a greater share of the influence on the appropriation request and funding distribution, while also being sure to allow institutions to continue to receive funding for new buildings when they come online, and by removing the premium on older space, no longer providing a disincentive or experiencing a reduction in funds due to the renovation of that existing space. FRC members generally understood why THEC were recommending a change to the fixed cost component, though, as I've mentioned, our institutional representatives did express some concerns with the effects of this change on their institutional operations. And THEC staff have received generally positive feedback on this recommended change during our legislative committee presentations. In fact, during our presentation with the Senate Finance Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Watson was sure to mention that he agreed with this policy change, saying that under the current policy, institutions might feel rewarded to grow their footprint even if they did not need to grow. And that movement away from that would better align with operating and capital policies. Our final recommendation represents a technical change to an existing focus population premium. Due to the challenges with a current data source, the low-income focus population is currently the only component of the funding formula that does not include out-of-state students, which was never the intention. So the data source that we use to identify low-income students is the ISER record from the FAFSA. We pull that data from our internal data source, and that only looks at Tennessee residents, because we're only collecting ISER records for Tennessee residents. What we're now going to be able to do is the institutions now are able to provide that data to us for out-of-state students. So we can make this measure more holistic and put it in alignment with our other outcome and focus population measures by including those out-of-state students and making sure that institutions are rewarded for their successes the same way they are in every other metric. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation, and at this time, THEC staff recommend the approval of the changes to the outcomes-based funding formula summarized in your agenda item 2 for immediate implementation in this cycle, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thanks, Ms. Collins. Questions? Ms. Collins, Mayor Warden.
Are they in accord with your resolution to continue to look at it and adjust it annually, if necessary?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for the follow-up. So we provided that, what I said to you today, we provided that back to the University of Memphis and heard from President Hardgrave that they are in accordance with us. Yes, sir.
Thank you. One quick second question. With respect to out-of-state low-income student, taking that into consideration and the amount of the awards, are we requiring in the reciprocity? In other words, if they will do it for our students, or is it just a one-way deal here?
Well, sir, I can't speak to how other states are funding their institutions and whether or not they're taking into account Tennesseans and whether they count when Tennessee students, say, attend school in Arkansas or Mississippi. But what I can say is that when we moved from the 2010 version of the model to the 2015 version of the model, we stopped removing funding from institutions based on residency for students. We moved away from that. It was brought forward to the commission and voted on. It was recommended by the FRC at that time. So the institution themselves will not face, any longer will not face detriment for serving out-of-state students related to this metric.
Okay, I just want to make sure that they're not penalized directly or indirectly. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Stafford.
Crystal, to take Commissioner Wharton's first question a little bit further, and so understanding that you all will continue to analyze this on an annual basis, is it your understanding that we can get to a zero consideration of fixed costs, or is that not likely? And how do we factor sort of the future of college campuses in light of sort of an online world and how we value that or don't value that?
That's a five-fold question, sir, and I will do my best. So related to the review of the formula, specifically to the fixed costs, I think with the fixed cost component, that will be one that we look at within our 5-year review cycle, because that's not something that feels urgent. Every year was related to the WIP, but sir, if you bring it forward and say that you want to move this faster, if the commission decides they would like to move this faster and we have the conversation with the FRC, we absolutely would on an annual basis during our review look at potentially reducing that fixed cost component down towards zero. Based on the conversations that we've had over the last 18 or so months related to this metric, I think the concern was if we turned it off completely immediately, there would be a gap for our institutions. So I think what we would like to work towards with this incremental change is to figure out a way for institutions to not be harmed by that removal by making sure there are other places where funding is available for new space when it comes online. So I think that, yes, we are still working towards that 0% eventually, because an outcomes formula should be about outcomes, sir. And so anything I can do to remove metrics from it that aren't outcomes related is what I would like to focus on.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I think Crystal is spot on, and I think the point she made a moment ago about the overarching goal here being to align the left hand talking to the right hand in terms of conversations around capital and facilities. So if when we go through our capital outlay and renovation process, we are incenting and prioritizing renovation and investments in maintenance rather than new outlay, and then there's another piece of THEC policy that does the opposite, the end game is to make sure that those two policies are talking to each other in the way that Ms. Collins described.
Commissioner Scarlett.
I just want to reaffirm what Commissioner Stafford was talking about in regards to 0%. And we have had this conversation, Crystal. You've been amazing at providing additional data. Going from 22 to 15% is fine, but it's incremental. And as I understand it, not having the full history, we do a lot of incremental changes. We don't really think about transformative changes. And if we're really going to think about how do we really fuel the outcomes for students, I would propose that fixed costs should not be part of this. And I recognize that that can cause some heartburn with some people, but I can't connect the capital costs with the operational costs to be able to help support students' outcomes. And if this is really an outcomes-based formula, what do the capital costs have to do with those student outcomes? I do believe that capital costs can, that 15% could be operated in a different way outside of this formula. And I think that is the best approach to get down to 0%. I'd propose even wiping the slate clean. I recognize that Tennessee is looked at as one of the best budgeting states in the nation, which I applaud the work that we've done here. I also wonder, in today's day and age, is it time to wipe that slate clean and start over and look at what is the best way to think about outcomes for our students? And fixed costs, to me, I think should be outside of this formula.
Thank you, Commissioner Scarlett. Secretary Hargett.
Well, if I could go back to an earlier conversation where we talked about the quality assurance formula piece. I know I was involved in the original version of coming up with this funding formula, and this quality assurance piece was kind of set to the side as to relieve some people that, hey, at least there's this one piece over here that's not part of the formula. But until we get our feet on the ground with the overarching outcomes-based formula, that we're not going to make changes to quality assurance. I want to know, has there been any conversation about moving that quality assurance piece into the outcomes-based formula?
Well, sir, what I would say is that the quality assurance piece is part of the recommended changes that you see. So it's an additional 5.45% of points. So the points that we calculated in order to determine the recommendation that comes to you, it is included in that. So the administration of the program is outside of the fiscal division because it is so focused on academic affairs questions related to accreditation, related to student success and access. It is being operated outside of the fiscal division, but we work very closely as partners, hence why I was here when Julie was talking. We work very closely partnered about that particular program, but it does receive funding through the appropriation request. Yes, sir.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the discussion, especially around the fixed cost issue. I know I was very involved with THEC staff about that last year. I absolutely agree with the spirit of moving to eliminate the fixed cost from the formula. However, I would say it is key to have the legislature involved in that discussion as well if you want to move to 0%. I want to say I appreciate very much the THEC staff for taking this to the legislature and talking with them about it, and as you mentioned the quote, getting an endorsement of sorts from different members of the legislature. But if we want to continue to move in that direction, as far as this component of the formula, I think the legislature has to be actively solicited specifically as to how they feel about this issue, and they have to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. Other questions or comments on this item? Lots of good discussion. Okay, Ms. Collins, thank you so much for your presentation. So the floor is open. The item on the agenda for consideration is adoption of the outcomes-based funding formula recommendations that have been presented to us here this morning. Motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify so by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Recommendations are adopted. Next item on the agenda is the 2022-2023 binding tuition fees and fee ranges. All right, thanks very much.
Thank you, Chairman Cope, Director House, members of the Commission. I'm Russell Van Zomeren, Director of Fiscal Policy. As you all are aware, each year this body is to set binding ranges, one for tuition and one for combined tuition and mandatory fees. These ranges apply to all universities, community colleges, technical colleges, and their respective in-state undergraduate rates. In order to set these ranges each year, THEC considers a variety of factors. We consider how current tuition and fee levels, as well as student debt levels, compare to regional and national peers. We also look at what our institutions are doing with their institutional scholarships, as well as their discount rates. We consider enrollment patterns, and we consider inflationary cost increases. This has been a big topic of discussion this year, with inflation seeing drastic increases on all goods year over year. This is, of course, hitting the pocketbooks of everyone in this room, and it also has an effect on our institutional finances. And finally, we, of course, consider the levels of state support. In years where state support is particularly high, such as this year, our institutions are less likely to need additional tuition revenue in order to be whole. In years where state investment is lower, institutions balance their checkbooks, in part by increasing tuition. So that's the basic framework we work within. I want to talk a little bit about the tuition modeling process and how it operates in practice. And so we have an institution here that averages about $17,000 per FTE, of which about $7,000 is coming from state appropriations, $10,000 from tuition and fees. This is just an example, but it's a pretty standard example for what our universities are experiencing. We then need to gather some data and make some assumptions about what's going to happen in the upcoming year. So you can see here, when we made our ranges for this year, we did so using what was 4% inflation at the time, meaning that in order for this institution to be whole relative to its funding the year prior, they needed an additional 4% in funding per FTE, or about $17,700. We also assumed that this institution would have stable FTE enrollment, and that we would have a $90 million appropriation in operating and salary, which equated for this institution to about a 7.5% increase in state appropriations. That's the $7,500 that you're seeing there. Using this framework, we estimate that this institution would still need about a 2% increase in order to maintain funding levels year over year. So this falls within the 0 to 3% guiding range that you all set in November. We then complete this analysis for all of our institutions. We also know that institutions often discount their tuition, so not every tuition dollar will be charged to every student, and we account for that as well. And finally, in concert with the appropriations requests, we create a fee range that encompasses the variety of institutional revenue needs. That's the basic process for how we're coming up with our tuition and fee ranges. I now want us to pivot and look at the Commission's actions leading up to this meeting, as well as our recommendations for the 2022-2023 ranges. The chart you're looking at here, and many of you, if you've been on the Commission for a while, have seen this chart many times before. It's easy to understate the significance of what we're seeing here. But prior to 2015-16 and going back decades, tuition increases were consistently greater than 5% annually and often into the double digits in terms of year-over-year percent growth. The trend since 2015-16 in Tennessee has been low, incremental growth in tuition and fees. During the spring of 2021, this commission approved a 0 to 2% binding range on tuition and fees, all institutions met this range when setting their tuition policies. Back in November of 2021, the Commission approved a 0 to 3% guiding range. This is a non-binding range intended to help institutions plan as the Governor and General Assembly consider our recommendations. The purpose of that range, of course, is to give institution an idea of the action that the Commission may take if the appropriations request is met. This guiding range was made in concert with a $90 million request in recurring dollars that the Commission requested to fully fund growth and outcomes and an estimated 2% salary increase. We then, of course, wait to see what happens with the administration, the General Assembly, the final budget, and we come forward to you all with a binding range on tuition and a binding range for tuition and mandatory fees, by which our institutions must fall in or below. They will set their tuition and fee policies by July 1 of this year. While the Commission's formal appropriation request was $90 million tied to a 0 to 3% guiding range at the time, with encouragement from this Commission, we also presented information in our budget presentation on the estimated cost of having a 0% tuition increase at our formula units for the upcoming year. The estimated cost we presented was $130 million in new recurring state appropriations. Governor Lee, in concert with the General Assembly, ultimately passed a historic budget for higher education that included $137 million towards operating and salary costs at our formula units. As I noted earlier, each year our range is informed by a few key considerations: student affordability, enrollment patterns, inflationary factors, and of course, state support. The conversations that this Commission has put forth over the last few years has helped us move in this direction, and today the Commission is considering a binding tuition range of 0 to 0%, or rather no tuition increases for in-state undergraduate students at Tennessee public institutions. A 0 to 0% range will ensure that Tennessee has the lowest growth in tuition year over year that the state has seen in the last 4 decades, and will reflect the first time in this Commission's history that the Commission is voting on a 0% range. Members of the Commission, with the total appropriations levels for formula units equaling over $137 million, and with the great need to maintain affordability for students, it is my great pleasure to recommend for 2 separate votes a 0 to 0% binding range for tuition and a 0 to 0% binding range for combined tuition and mandatory fees for in-state undergraduate students. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dr. House,
So thank you so much, Russell, for that presentation. And Russell is such a professional and delivered that so professionally. But I would ask the Commission and all those in attendance to really just think about what Russell just said, which is, unlike any of our regional peers, unlike many other states throughout the nation, thanks to the investment from Governor Lee's team and the legislature, we are able to keep tuition flat this year. And I think that is something that should be emphasized, should be celebrated. Thank you to the good work of Russell and Crystal and Stephen, but also the good work of this Commission to really challenge us in how we think about this. This is a really, really historic day. And Russell, if you ever have to present in front of this board again, it's only going to go downhill from here. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks very much. Presentation. Comments about this historic moment? Commissioner Coben.
I think it is appropriate for our commission to thank the governor and the legislature for working so closely with us and with staff and with our campuses. It is a momentous occasion, and there's some former members of this commission that I'm sure are smiling wherever they are at this moment. Thank you, Russell.
Thanks, Commissioner Coben. Well said, and I echo those comments completely. Other comments or questions? We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Let me just a point of clarification. You'd mentioned 2 separate items on the agenda. It's listed as one item, so I want to make sure
We've traditionally voted on this as one item.
Okay, so we have one item for both recommendations. We have a motion from Secretary Hargett. Do we have a second? Second from Comptroller Mumpower. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify so by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we move on to new academic programs. Dr. Julie Roberts.
Thank you, Commissioner Cope. We do have today 3 new academic programs for your consideration. The first is a Master's of Science in Applied Data Science at ETSU. We'll be hearing from President Noland and Dr. Kimberly McCorkle on that one. Then we'll be followed by a presentation for Dr. Amy Aldridge Sanford from MTSU about their proposed Bachelor of Science in Public Writing and Rhetoric. And then lastly, we'll hear from Dr. John Zomchik from UT Knoxville regarding their proposed Masters of Science in Marketing. So with that, I'd like to invite President Noland up.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, good morning. On behalf of our Board of Trustees, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the new Provost of our university, Dr. Kimberly McCorkle. Dr. McCorkle joins us from the University of West Florida, where she was Vice Provost and a full professor. For those who are aware of the academic leadership at our institution, you know that for more than 3 decades, we were ably led by Dr. Bert Bach, and it is a great pleasure of our institution to welcome new perspective, new voice, and a new face to the podium. And with that, I'm going to transition out of the way and ask that the Provost step forward and present this agenda item.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Noland. Commissioners, Chairman Cope, Dr. House, and guests, it's my pleasure to present the Master of Science in Applied Data Science for your consideration today. This is an academic program that is at the master's level in the field of data science, and I think all of us are aware of the importance of the field of data science, but in general, the field of data science includes the study of collecting, processing, and interpreting big data. It is a multidisciplinary field, and it includes curriculum from statistics, mathematics, computer science, and others. This proposed program is a 39-credit online program that has online, face-to-face, and hybrid options available for students, and we believe that it will appeal to a wide range of students who are both professional students, working adults, as well as traditional students who process from the bachelor's degree to the master's level. As I mentioned, data science is a vast growing field. It has a very high job demand, which we'll talk about in a moment, but it's a rapidly growing field in almost every industry that includes technology, health services, business, government, and so on. And with the vast proliferation of data that's generated across industries, it is imperative that our universities develop degree programs in this field that can help serve the workforce needs. You will find in the materials that we presented that we included letters of support from local industry partners, from Eastman Chemical Company, Oak Ridge Laboratory, as well as Ballad Health, who all expressed support for this program in helping them to achieve their workforce demands. I would also like to say that this program is proposed to be housed as an interdisciplinary effort between our College of Arts and Sciences and also with the College for Business and Technology. And specifically, the program will be overseen by the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at the university. This program also aligns with the state master plan as well as with ETSU's institutional mission. As mentioned, it has a strong STEM focus. It's a STEM degree in an area with strong workforce demand. From the ETSU perspective, it meets the mission that we have to improve the quality of life of the citizens in our region, to create opportunities for them, to have employment opportunities in fields that will improve and strengthen the quality of life of those in our region. We know that graduates from this program will have high demand skills that will make them employable across the region, across the state, and across the nation in a variety of industries and professions. As I mentioned a moment ago, this is an area that has extremely strong projected labor demand. The Bureau of Labor Statistics anticipates that there will be growing demand in this field by about 22% over the next 10 years. Across the state of Tennessee, the projections are about 15% job growth. And I would also mention that data science is a field that is listed as about within the top 5 areas for growing job demand across the nation. And so we know that the employment outlook and projections are quite strong in this field. I would like to mention that one of probably the most significant parts of this projected degree program is that it has a very applied focus, and that was by design. So this is a 39 credit hour program that includes the opportunity for students to intern in industry, in fields, to work on real data sets with community partners, with industry partners that will prepare them for jobs upon graduation. So we think that that's a unique feature of this particular program and will also make the graduates more marketable and employable upon graduation. Finally, I would like to mention the financial projections for this program. You'll see from the materials that it's projected to have a conservative enrollment of about 12 students in the first year, growing to about 24 students by the 5th year. It is possible, as our external reviewer said, that there may be more demand for this program and we may grow even larger than that by the 5th year. But based on conservative estimates of program growth, we believe that after the first year of this program that revenues will exceed expenditures and that the program will have a positive financial outlook. I'll mention that this program does not require us to hire any new faculty until about the 3rd year because we have existing faculty on staff in our Department of Mathematics and Statistics and our Department of Computing who can teach the majority of the courses that are in this degree field. It also offers the opportunity for students to draw on a wide range of electives in disciplines that already exist across the university. With that said, I would be happy to take any questions that the commissioners may have. And may I also first thank the staff of THEC for assisting us with this program. This was an expedited degree program, and we appreciate the assistance of the staff to be able to develop a program that is this important to industry so that we could meet job demand in a relatively quick time frame. So I'd like to thank the staff for their assistance.
Thank you, Dr. McCorkle. Questions or comments? We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify so by saying aye. Are there any opposed? No. Motion carries. The program is approved. Congratulations. The next item on our agenda is the MTSU Public Writing Rhetoric Bachelor of Science.
Good morning. I'm Amy Aldridge Sanford, and I am the Vice Provost for Academic Programs at MTSU, and I arrived about 90 days ago from the Texas A&M system, so I'm feeling a little hazed today, but it's good to see you all. The Provost sends his regrets. He was called out of town. I am joined by Dr. Eric Detweiler, and he will be the program coordinator for this if you pass this item today. We also have other members of the English faculty with us here in the audience. It is our pleasure to be with you today to discuss a proposed BS in Public Writing and Rhetoric, which has the support of our campus community and our Board of Trustees. The BS in Public Writing and Rhetoric at MTSU is the first of its kind in the state of Tennessee. As everyone here likely knows, there's a growing workforce demand in public writing careers with similar degrees popping up at the University of Kentucky, University of Arkansas Little Rock, University of Central Arkansas, West Virginia State, and the University of Pittsburgh, to name just a few places. Upon successful completion of this degree, MTSU undergraduates can stay here in the region and find employment. And they can find it in technical writing, copywriting, speech writing, grant writing, or as authors, publication specialist, or content specialist. Back when the group was writing this proposal in the fall of 2021, they looked for jobs in the area and found 2,000 in the Nashville area over the course of just 30 days. MTSU has strong support for the degree from regional employers, and we have letters from attorneys, book publishers, distilleries, the communication industry, and nonprofits. On this slide, we've listed a couple of the required courses for the degree, including community writing and digital writing. The students also have the option of completing an internship. The focus of the course content is very much on writing and being understood by multiple audiences in our public. The degree and its learning objectives privilege THEC's strategic goals to close the writing skill gap and to honor liberal arts degrees as workforce degrees. The program comes at very low financial cost for the university and for our students. There's no new full-time faculty hires needed to move forward with this degree. The program is expected to generate revenue from year one, which is very rare to see that happen. And we also have reasonably priced tuition and fees. I don't have to make the sales pitch to you all. You already know that, and you just saw a presentation about it. It is worth noting, though, that the median annual salary for technical writers in the U.S. is $78,000, and then our in-state tuition and fees are less than $10,000 a year. We believe our enrollment numbers are conservative, and that this will build on the success of the writing minor, which already has 100 students in it. Thank you for your attention and consideration, and we are happy to take any questions.
Any questions on this item? Yes, sir, Commissioner Stafford.
I don't have a question, but I just have a brief commentary. Excuse me. Working in the public sector myself, or in the past and in the private sector today, I do see how this has become necessary, but it just seems to me that it's a shame that we've gotten to this point where this type of basic writing is typically taught at the primary school level, and we've got to now talk about teaching it at the post-secondary level. So I just think it's a shame that we've gotten to that point.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. I think also, and I'm sure that you understand this requires our students to understand more about audiences. And that doesn't always happen when we write. You know, sometimes we just write for some unknown person out there. But I appreciate how public writing rhetoric takes that into consideration as well. So that'll build on your concerns, you know, about writing and this necessary skill set.
Other questions or comments on this item? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. The floor is open. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a second. All in favor, any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify so by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Program is approved. Congratulations. Final item for new academic programs is the University of Tennessee Knoxville Marketing Master of Science.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Chairman Cope, Director House, members of the Commission. I'm John Somchik. I have the privilege to serve as the Provost at the University of Tennessee Knoxville. And I'm quite thrilled this morning to bring before you a new program, Master of Science in Marketing, approved by our faculty and our Board of Trustees, and offered by our very highly nationally ranked Haslam College of Business. The academic program here, the objective of the program is to produce people who will be prepared to have careers in marketing management and equip them with a toolbox that has all of the cutting-edge tools that they need to meet current marketing demands. Our audience for this new program will be primarily UTK business majors, but also non-UTK business majors who come with appropriate prerequisites and marketing professionals. The program will last 10 months for full-time students, 22 months for part-time students. We will start off in year one as a face-to-face program. Year two or year three, we will move to offer it as an online program. Students at the university can opt into early admission, bringing 6 hours from their undergraduate marketing training to the program. The total number of hours for the program is 32. There's currently no other program like this offered by a public university in the state of Tennessee. There is a program that is similar at Vanderbilt University, but as you can see, the cost of this program will be right around the same cost as that offered by the University of Kentucky, about $100 less than University of Kentucky. And so you can see coming to the world-renowned Haslam College of Business for a master's in marketing should be a good deal for the citizens of the state of Tennessee. Not that I'm prejudiced about that. We've done our due diligence. We've looked at what the demand is out there. We've gone to employers and industry to see if there is interest and need for professionals trained in this. And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. You can see up there, quite like the Masters of Science, I guess, in data science, 22% unique postings with a preference for a master's degree of this sort, 2,050 unique job postings. 60% of our seniors in the Haslam College of Business who were polled about this program indicated an interest in continuing their education, going on and getting a master's degree. Here are the financials and our enrollment projection. As you can see, by about year 3, it looks like we will, our revenues will outpace our expenditures. Again, these are conservative estimates about enrollment. We think that this program will have a very strong appeal both to our own students and to individuals throughout the state. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the Commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Commissioner Coben.
When you mentioned that it will be available online in second or third year, will it be strictly online from that point on, or is it just you can take it either way?
No, Commissioner, it will be offered in both modalities, so it will continue to be given face-to-face with an online option.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Very good. Thank you so much for the presentation. The item is now up for consideration on the floor.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Scarlett with a motion to approve, second from Commissioner Stafford. Is that right, Commissioner? Very good. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify so by saying aye. Are there any approved? Motion carries. The program is approved. Congratulations. Okay, we have one more action item. Division of Post-Secondary State Authorization Emergency Rules. Julie Roberts. Or Woodruff, I'm sorry.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman Cope, Commissioners, Dr. House. This morning, we are asking that you adopt emergency rules written to implement the provisions of Public Chapter number 1044. Lou alluded to this previously. It was House Bill 2606 and Senate Bill 2843. The act was signed by Governor Lee on May 11th and is effective as of signing for purposes of promulgating rules. The substantive provisions of the act will go into effect on July 1st, 2022. A few highlights I'll point out to you of the revisions made through the Act and the emergency rules are as follows. The Act dissolves the Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions. Therefore, the emergency rules removes any reference to the committee and then reassigns the roles of the Commission, Executive Director, and Commission staff accordingly. The rule revisions allow for initial authorization applications, for example, to be filed on a rolling basis. It is expected that this revision will shorten the time between filing the application and the institution receiving authorization, because once Commission staff determine that the institution meets the minimum requirements, the Executive Director may award provisional authorization. Now, that provisional authorization will be subject to ratification by the Commission, and so, for example, much like you have consent items on your agenda today, in the future, those consent items will be the ratification of the actions of the Executive Director with regard to provisional authorization. The revisions to the Act and the rules also allow for authorization for up to 4 years, with the requirement that institutions submit compliance certification statements in years 1, 2, and 3. This will reduce the regulatory burden on institutions, we believe. However, it will also make sure that they are aware of the obligations of the statutes and the rules and be cognizant of their need to comply with those. So moving forward, if the commission adopts staff's recommendation and the emergency rule revisions, and once the appropriate rule filing forms have been submitted to and signed by the Attorney General's office, the form will be forwarded to the Secretary of State's office, and the emergency rules will be effective July 1st, when the act is effective. That concludes my summary, and I'm welcome to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Woodruff. Questions or comments? Very good. Thank you very much. The floor is open. Commissioner Coben.
Chairman Cope, I would like to move that the commission vote to adopt the proposed emergency rules with an effective date of July 1, 2022 for filing with the Secretary of State's office and authorize the executive director to make any revisions recommended by the Office of the Attorney General that are technical or necessary to ensure the legality of the rules.
Thank you, Commissioner Coben. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second. We have a second from Mayor Wharton. This will have to be a roll call vote, so unless there's further discussion, hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Alman, Commissioner Dishner, Commissioner Galloway,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben, Commissioner Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford, Commissioner Wharton, Commissioner Winton, Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower. Chairman, you have 12 ayes.
Very good. The motion is carried. Emergency rules are adopted. Thanks very much. The next item, that concludes our action item portion of the agenda. We'll now turn to Jessica Gibson for an update on Navigate Reconnect.
Thank you, Chairman Cope, Dr. House, members of the Commission. I'm Jessica Gibson. I'm the Senior Director for Adult Learner Initiatives in the Bureau of Access and Outreach. And I'm really happy to have a few minutes with you today to talk about the work that we're doing at THEC to support adult learners to degree completion. The Adult Learner Initiatives Division really focuses our work in two main areas. The first is Navigate Reconnect, where we provide actual direct service to adult learners who are pursuing degrees. The other area we really focus on is strategic alignment. This is where we formally partner with other state agencies and organizations outside of higher education to streamline access to resources so that adults can continue their degrees without needing to stop out. We are currently serving almost 10,000 active reconnectors. By active, I mean that they are either doing paperwork towards college applications or financial aid applications, or they are currently enrolled. When I say reconnectors, and when I use the term reconnector, we mean any adult that we're serving that is pursuing a degree, regardless of their Reconnect grant eligibility status. So this program, Navigate Reconnect, is not limited to Reconnect grantees only. We also have 3,000 alumni that we have helped to complete a credential. And I'll say this a few more times in my presentation, but we are always partnering with other organizations because we have to. Our focus is really on the whole student, and we want to be able to provide whatever services they need. We can't directly provide all of the services they need, so we need to know where they are, how to get students to them, and how to make sure that they're enrolling where they can. The Navigate Reconnect model is one of high-touch, institution-neutral support from the moment an adult decides they want to go back to college all the way through until they graduate. And this model is actually based on a model called the Graduate Network model out of Philadelphia. We worked very closely with the Graduate Network beginning in 2015 to customize it, develop, implement, and launch what would become Navigate Reconnect. Tennessee was the first state in the nation to scale this model statewide. Since then, other states have followed suit. We are considered a trailblazer in this work, and really to the point where other states have adopted the term reconnect or the term reconnector when describing their programs or their students. The model is based, it really stands on 4 pillars that you see up here. Impact services is our most visible work. That's where we provide direct services to students. I'll go into detail on what those look like in just a minute. Partnerships is the critical work of engaging with partners to provide wraparound services for our students. Messaging is where we are sharing information about the Navigate Reconnect services and the Tennessee Reconnect grant in the communities that we serve. And sustainability is focused on growing our services and making sure that we are a respected and stable presence within the community. And I would like to take a moment and actually recognize two of our staff members. Dwight Fox is the Middle Tennessee Navigate Reconnect director. He's been with us since the very beginning. Tennessee Tech is in his service area, and he has a wealth of experience in higher education and workforce development and has a very unique perspective. And I'd also like to recognize Tina Bishop. She is the Navigate Reconnect director for the state, so she manages all the operations across the state and really works on visioning for our way forward. And it's Tina's birthday today, so she's here. She's here at the commission meeting on her birthday. I wanted to share some feedback that we've received from reconnectors about our navigators, really to illustrate why we do what we do. We know that adult learners perform as well or better than traditional age students if they are given the right supports. And that's because they have really often a wealth of experience, good time management skills. They know why they're there. And at the same time, they have competing demands on their time and lots of responsibilities. Most of our reconnectors are parents, or they are taking care of their own aging parents. They are employees, they may have multiple jobs, and they have responsibilities within their community. So there are lots of opportunities for them to not go to college or for them to drop out. So navigators are really focused on opening doors, removing obstacles, and helping them navigate often complicated processes so they have every opportunity to actually go back to college. So specifically, our impact services, as I mentioned, a navigator will work with a reconnector from the moment they think about going back all the way through until they graduate. And that may be over the course of several years. So that means they're helping them research colleges and programs, helping them see how their academic pursuits really line up with their career goals. They help them understand what college costs, how to pay for it, what financial aid is, how to apply for financial aid, how to apply to college, what a bursar is, who to talk to at a college if they have any issues or problems. They also help them set goals and meet deadlines, and if they need to get connected to other resources like childcare, transportation, and other benefits, they can refer them to those services as well. In 2019, our team expanded a little bit. Governor Lee implemented the Corrections Education Investment Initiative, where community colleges and TCAT set up programs in 9 state prisons across Tennessee, accompanied by Navigate Reconnect services. So we have 3 reentry navigators that are responsible for 9 state prisons who do much of the same work as the regional navigators with some very distinct differences. Almost all of their work is face-to-face, and all incarcerated students or prospective students have no internet access. So they help them with paper FAFSAs, college applications over the phone, resolving loan default over the phone. And many of the students they work with in the prisons have experienced trauma, so their needs are quite complex and sometimes different. The next 2 slides are data points that are also in the handout that should be in front of you as well. I just wanted to call attention to a couple of them. As I said, we're working with almost 10,000 active reconnectors. Oh, yes. And 3,000 alumni. We, excuse me, sorry, my readers. We've engaged in communication over 112,000 times this year alone. 66% of our reconnectors are women. As you can see, they are primarily interested in going to community colleges, and you can see their areas of interest there. We, on average, receive 245 new inquiries per month, and that really hasn't changed over the past couple of years. So as enrollment has gone down, our inquiries have actually stayed pretty stable. So people are still interested in going back to college, and they're interested in Reconnect. But there are things that are keeping them from it at the moment. To focus in on reentry specifically, as I mentioned, 3 reentry navigators working with approximately 1,600 incarcerated or formerly incarcerated students. And most of their interactions are in person. However, they are working with those who are recently back in the free world to help them enroll in college. So they're sort of straddling that time period prior to release and then back in the free world so that they're continuing with them as they want to enroll in college. Their preferences are really split between TCATs and community colleges, and their areas of interest, as you can see, are different as well. And we're primarily working with men. I'm going to shift a little bit and talk about how our strategic alignment work directly serves students. We have something called the Tennessee Reconnect Ambassador Program. We launched this in 2016. And what we do, it's really a volunteer activity where someone in the course of their day has the opportunity to talk to adults about going to college. The goals and what we train ambassadors to do is to recognize somebody who may be an adult learner or prospective adult learner, share basic information, answer basic questions, and then get them to their first step. And that first step might be visiting the website. It could be connecting with a navigator or connecting directly with a college. We've trained 600 Department of Human Services staff, 550 American Job Center staff, as well as college staff, nonprofit organizations, employers, HR directors across the state, and we intend to expand that program. We also worked with TBR, the Department of Labor and the Department of Human Services to create the Tennessee Reconnect Success Collaborative. So while our navigators are referring students directly to services in their community, we are working on the state level to try to expand partnerships to connect students in a more formal way through discussions, through formalizing partnerships, through training opportunities for college staff, navigators, and employers of partner agencies. And then we've also created a digital database that houses information about existing public benefits and resources available to students. We took that one step further and have created what we're calling the Tennessee Quick Screener. And that is something that's available to navigators and to college staff. It's voluntary. A student has to opt into it. And they're currently screened for eligibility for SNAP, TANF, WIC, Lifeline, the Earned Income Tax Credit, and the Child Tax Credit. And then while we would love to screen for these additional programs, they're very localized in many cases. So we provide information on WIOA, Smart Steps, Child Care Payment Assistance, the grant, and SNAP Employment and Training. So that concludes my presentation. I do want to say one other thing. We know anecdotally that this program is successful. We have some preliminary information that shows that, but we are engaging with the Boyd Center to do a formal evaluation of the impact of Navigate Reconnect on students. We're very excited about that evaluation. So now that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Jessica. Questions? Commissioner Coben.
Jessica, thanks for this great report, and I can't wait to hear the outcomes information that you all provide. I just want to make sure I understand one thing. As you were going through your report, I was thinking, what is that little thing, that spark that brings someone out in our public to us so that our navigators can work them through the system? And so I suppose that is the ambassador. So how many ambassadors do we have out there, you know, sort of combing the fields to see if there's anybody that needs to be in the program or could be?
So we estimate that we have about 2,000 ambassadors out throughout Tennessee, but we would like to formalize that and make that, we'd like to broaden that reach. I would say too, our partnerships with the Department of Labor and the Department of Human Services are fantastic. And their staff inform the people that they're working with about Reconnect services. And I will say too, our directors, part of their jobs are to go out into the community, talk to employers, talk to the workforce boards, talk to the high schools. We show up at events. We're there at career days. So we're trying to get as many opportunities face-to-face with people to share this information But yes, as far as the ambassador program goes, we would like to expand that. We would like to work with more state agencies. We'd like to work with more local governments and also nonprofit organizations.
Other questions or comments? Great. Treasurer Lillard.
Yeah, thank you very much for that good report on this very important program, and obviously you're achieving significant results. That's very apparent from that report. I just wanted to touch on one other thing, and that is to further on what Commissioner Coben was asking about. You say you've got 3 reentry and 13 reconnect navigators that you work with. Is one of the keys to this that you need more people like that? You know, you need more personnel, or you need more systems, or what is it, you know, that actually, as Commissioner Coben pointed out, you know, allows you to reach that result that you're seeking?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe with more navigators in the field, we could serve more people. And the people that we're currently serving, we could serve them in a higher touch way. Now, I will say that we are anticipating some new positions for an additional 3 reentry navigators specifically in this most recent budget. So we will have 3 additional reentry navigators. But yes, we could always do more if we had more boots on the ground.
Okay, I will keep that in mind. You know, as another point, and I'm sure everybody in the room knows it, you know, we've talked today about 0% increase in tuition and fees and other great achievements that are occurring, but to me, at the end of the day, whether it's your program here or it's what one of our universities does or a TCAT or a community college, it's how well we connect with our students and shepherd them through the system to reach a degree or other desired outcome. It's just like in the world of sports, where if you play, your school, your team plays basketball, whether you get to go to the playoffs and whether you win in the end in the playoffs depends on how well you play basketball. And that's true of us in, you know, higher education as well. And it's how well we actually deliver that connecting service that makes sure that that student is ultimately successful, or that returning student in your case here. And I want to commend you on having a study, you know, done by the Boyd Center that y'all are about to undertake, because we need to, as a higher education system in Tennessee, in my view, actively measure how much success we have in that item. Now, I know some of our institutions are doing that to some degree and everything, but we need to double down on that, because it's not so much the amount, we don't in any way begrudge the amount of money that go into higher education, but it gives us a concomitant challenge of making sure that we're achieving the very highest results with that, and that is usually translated into student success. So in that regard, anything that is needed to get that done, it's helpful to know what is needed at this particular point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir, thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Gibson. Great presentation. Thank you. The final item on our agenda is another discussion item on committees within the commission, and it looks like that belongs to Scott Sloan.
My comments on committees will be brief. This is not a complex legal issue. We did prepared and provide an overview document that each of you received this morning. I'll touch on that very briefly, just as an overview. We have one joint committee that is required by statute, and that is the THEC Joint Audit Committee. There are 2 committee options that exist in our policy, and keep in mind that policy is adopted by this commission. You are self-governing in that regard, with choices with how you may execute your duties and those processes that bring the items as they're considered up to this commission for a final vote. One is an executive committee that consists of the officers, and secondly, the chair in concurrence with the commission, has the authority to appoint advisory committees at will. At the end of the day, you are self-governing in making these choices. The Tennessee Higher Education Commission possesses the authority to amend their policies at will and establish any and all committee mechanisms it deems appropriate. That's all my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Question? Yes, sir, Mr. Secretary.
Scott, I assume you prepared the memo?
Yes, sir.
Preparing the memo for us today. So I may be one of the originators of it, if not the originator of this conversation. You know, I also serve on the Tennessee Housing Development Agency, in which we have several committees in which things flow through and up to the full commission. And so there's really kind of two different layers of discussion that you can have, but also it allows you to have a much deeper conversation many times inside those committees, which I have found to be very valuable in that body. And also, I kind of look at our organization, and what I would like to kind of figure out today, and I wish everybody was with us, is, and I know we're not taking action today, but you know, perhaps it may be enough that, frankly, we could give some guidance to the chairman about what type of advisory committees we want to create. You know, for example, at THDA, all the committee business, with the exception of one committee, which is similar to our executive committee, there's the Audit and Budget Committee, requires the approval of the full body. I have found myself thinking that in areas like capital outlay, tuition, and even funding formula, that it feels like there is an opportunity to do a much deeper dive among us when there's so much talent sitting around this table. And I feel like that there's not a lot of ability to have conversation together until we get to this critical moment of 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning and thinking about how many hours we have to have a discussion with all the great items we have on the agenda. And if I'm the only one that feels that way, then I'm fine with that, and we can just conduct our conversation a little bit differently here at the commission. But personally, I think this body, and most importantly, the students of our state, would benefit by the brain power that's just around this table being able to engage in more robust conversations and engaging more directly with staff at that committee level.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Comments, questions? Floor is open for discussion. Yes, sir. Treasurer Lillard. Thank you, Treasurer Lillard. Other comments or questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Callaway.
From the student perspective, I think that committees may also increase our voice in some of these topics. I know Dr. House and her staff have done a great job in welcoming me in and spending time in the office and learning more about the operations and the projects that are going on, but just at that higher level too, concurring with your thoughts on allowing us to provide more input as much as we can, or at least our viewpoints in that setting. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Coben.
Secretary Hargett and I have spoken about this before, several months ago, in fact. And I told him then, and I will tell you, I don't think I serve on another board that doesn't have committees or a committee that doesn't have subcommittees, except for this one. And I do see their value, but I have to also wonder if it's not duplication of effort. I'm not sure I am qualified to look into funding formula and do a deep dive there and come up with anything more accurate and on target and educated than the committee that we currently have. And I don't have a daily conversation with all of our schools, which concerns me. What I'm saying is, I think I neither have the ability, and I know I don't have the time, to do a deep dive of that nature. I think I serve this commission better at a 30,000-foot level, and I trust the THEC staff and the universities and community colleges, the TBR, to do that in-the-weeds stuff for me. I don't feel that I have the ability to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Coben. Other questions or comments? This is great discussion. Yes, sir, Mayor Warden.
Coben just pointed out, the staff does an excellent job, and I take it I have served longer than any other commissioner. I've seen it where we had work sessions in the morning, and then an afternoon session. I've seen it where we had dinner sessions the night before and work sessions. And I think the output, I really don't, I think if we get to meeting too often with too many committees, we start digging into things that have now been vested in the local governing boards. See, many years ago, we didn't have local governing boards. We operate, we look over the horizon, not over the shoulder. And that's where we are. We also have to keep in mind, I don't know how many folks are out there. If they hear a committee is meeting, the president of the university is going to say, hey, you need to get in on that, because where initial impressions are made. And so it's not merely what we need or do not need, it's all the other folks who are impacted. And I heard someone say that we are the leader when it comes to formula funding. I came here just a few years after we started that. It's improved year after year after year. We are still the leader. And there weren't a lot of, we had a formula review committee, but I think we're doing, a great job. I know you're not supposed to pat yourself on the back, but I think one of the reasons that we work so well and accomplish so much is that we look for highly competent staff. There has always been that collegiality among the commissioners that if you don't have enough on this, I've never seen anything crammed down. I've never, in my, 30 years, whatever it is. How many? Don't tell anybody else that. But I've never seen a situation in which anybody walked out of one of these meetings in all these decades where they just rammed that, I didn't get this, because I've also been here when there was concern that we weren't really doing what we were supposed to do and that there was a lot of fighting. We've had governors who've called us. I had one governor, I was in the middle of a trial, and he sent the state plane down there to get me, the late Commissioner Louis Donaldson, just to chew us out. I haven't seen that happen. That hasn't happened anymore. And I heard, it was a comptroller Mumpower this morning that said, look now, I agree, we need to let the legislature, it's because we respect, we recommend, we know why we're here. The late Lieutenant Governor Wilder told me many, many times why we were created. He reminded me of that when I think I chaired a couple of terms. But I think we're doing well. I do believe that at any time, any member or members of this body were to say, look, I think we need more study on this. I don't know of, I could guarantee you it's going to pass. But I sometimes do believe that committees have to justify themselves by finding things that ought to be left to the local governing boards or to the state legislature. The state legislature knows when they want more out of us. They'll tell us if they think the products that we're sending over there have not been studied diligently and deeply enough. That's my 2 cents worth on it. You can always disagree with me. Commissioner Lewin, Mr. Hargett.
Thanks, Mayor Wharton. Mr. Secretary?
And I appreciate your perspective, Commissioner Wharton. because I had a couple of conversations with legislators recently that were kind of some of that conversation that you had with Louis Donaldson, that when things don't line up on a list and you have something that's on the priority list one year, and then the next year it was number 4, the other things got funded, moved around, and the next year it's not on there. And the legislator asked me, what happened? And coming into this room, I don't necessarily have a great deal of comfort in how I can describe to them what happened. I had another conversation with a legislator very pointedly one afternoon about what a disclosed project was and what THEC was and was not doing in that regard. And, you know, frankly, it was one of the most stirring conversations I've had in my 13-plus years Secretary of State. So I would, you know, for me personally, once again, I may be the only one or one of a minority. And this has nothing to do with staff, because I do believe if I pick a phone and call staff, I'll get an answer to my question. But I also think there's value in collaborating in a smaller group and letting things funnel through committees up to this greater commission. And still, nothing prohibits this commissioner from having it. I'm like you, Commissioner. I don't need to have one more committee that I go to. But I'll tell you what, this is, I serve on a lot of different boards and commissions, not as me as a comptroller and treasurer. But if you want to talk about the future of our state and what we're trying to accomplish, and for people like Ethan Galloway and the students that will follow him, I feel like we owe it to them to make sure we are having as robust conversation as possible to ensure that we continue, that we do things like what we did today with student affordability, that we make sure that the buildings that we're building on our campus or renovating our campus are actually what we need, because ultimately they pay for those in their tuition. Taxpayers pay for those. We pay for those when we bond those. You know, when we talk about tweaking the funding formula, you know, those have real life consequences among people. You know, typically, I mean, we're going to come to a time where we don't have the ability for the legislature to say 0% tuition, and campus is going to have to make harder decisions. And I want us to make sure that we are doing everything possible through our structure to make sure we've analyzed everything. I have tremendous respect for where you've come from in your 40 years experience, which as far as dwarfs my 13 and a half on this body. But for me personally, I believe there's a lot to be gained. And I cracked up when Commissioner Coben said she didn't have the ability. She may not have the time. I know good and well she has the ability. Is that there's a lot to access here. I mean, good business people, good legal minds, and everybody around this table has been a student at some point and has a perspective from that as well. And we're all influencers in our own respective spheres of influence. We have the ability, I think, to add even greater value than what we are currently adding. Not that we're doing a bad job now. I think we could be even better.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Other comments? Commissioner Stafford.
So hearing some of the conversation has me thinking and reflecting. So I do serve on one committee here for THEC, and that's the Audit Committee, and it's an area that I have some familiarity with. But I also see it as an important role to play as well, because I can lend my expertise to that particular topic. It's a focused, specific topic and committee. If we're going to explore that, which I think we should have an open dialogue and conversation about, I am open to that. I would want us to come to a purposeful conclusion as to what the committee or new committees would be, and that they are focused on something specific, so that it's not just a random committee or a committee that doesn't have a set mission. For example, the Audit Committee's mission is very clear and focused. So I would be interested in hearing more conversation from you, Secretary, about what committees you have in mind or what topics you would like to have on such a committee to make sure that we're spending time the most productive way that we can.
Thank you, Commissioner Stafford. Treasurer Lillard.
Yeah, I want to second what the Secretary said and further, and also I want to point out to those of you in the room who may not know all the history, with Mayor Wharton. Mayor Wharton and I go back a long, long way, and I have tremendous respect for the mayor. I was chairman of the County Board of Commissioners in Shelby County when he was county mayor. So he and I have a long history of working together, and I never will forget when I introduced him to my father, who's now 92 years old, as a county commissioner in Fayette County, one time at an event. And the mayor's reaction, he's probably forgotten this, was to say, "Yes, Mr. Lillard, your son sometimes takes me places where I might not ordinarily go." And that was when he was mayor and I was chairman of the commission. And so, Mayor, I would just say to you that I think this is one of those places where I know in your wisdom you'll see the thought process that we're going through here and saying that it's something we ought to consider doing. And I appreciate you contemplating that. And Commissioner Coben is one of the most brilliant people I've ever known, and I'm quite sure that she has many good things to add further to the overall deliberations of the commission in the format of a committee should we do that. I fully associate with Vernon Stafford's remarks that, if we did this sort of thing, it would have to be meaningful. It's not just a make-work assignment or anything else. But again, as at the bottom of all of this, I believe the amount of money that the state puts into higher education as an overall matter in Tennessee, the critical need for our state, and given the overall economic status of the United States of America, our national debt and other issues out on the future economically that we look at all the time in the Tennessee Treasury Department, I want us to look back at all points in the future and say that we did absolutely everything to utilize every dollar to the utmost here. And I think that's something else that could benefit by having further discussion about some of these items as it is built up over time and ultimately presented to the commission. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Secretary Hargett, did you want to comment?
Well, just briefly, and Commissioner Stafford, your point is well made, because I'm not for having some vague mission or lack thereof and just having one more committee to go to. But to me, the two things that centers around really are tuition and capital outlay. And there's going to come a time when we're not at 0%, and we've had these times before where staff comes in and says, we're recommending a range of 1 to 3%, or it could be 2 to 4%, or what have you. And I really would kind of like to dig in a little bit deeper and kind of understand how we get to those two different ranges. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it was the conversation around this table, and I wish we'd had it at a committee level last time whenever we challenged THEC staff to say, look, let's be the people that really go advocate for these students and go tell the legislature and the governor, here's what it would take. If you really want to fund a 0% tuition increase, here's what it is. And I think we need more opportunity to drive that conversation. And I think a committee structure where we're able to collaborate in a little bit smaller groups allows us to do that more effectively. And so once again, to really answer your question, capital outlay and tuition are two areas that I really see that we can really make sure that taxpayer dollars, student dollars are being well spent and we're driving student outcomes.
And maybe this is for you, Secretary Hargett, but from your experience on the THDA, as a practical matter, how does that committee system work? I'm just curious what the structure looks like.
It's a great question. We have one coming up where we're going to have committee meetings in the morning, and then we'll have a full board meeting in the afternoon. There have been times where we have done committee meetings the day before and then had committee meetings the next morning. So, I mean, I think there are different options. Sometimes we do those things telephonically, we do them virtually. I mean, I think all those things are options depending on what we have before us. We have some committees that there may be a quarter, there's not any pending business. For example, today we just voted on tuition range. I wouldn't anticipate at our next meeting that there's a need for a meeting to discuss tuition or student fees.
And maybe from the THDA you could tell, but would you envision the committee system being one where an action item would have to require the affirmative approval of the committee in order to advance to the full commission? Or would it just be like what I understand the rules to say, which would be only an advisory, either we think this is a great idea or it's not? and then it's up to the commission in the end to decide.
Well, our current rules say advisory only. I think that's satisfactory as long as we come forward and that committee is able to share their experience with other members, if so desired. I think you as chairman could call on the chair of that advisory committee and ask for a report from the committee on a particular item. And the report could be given, and frankly, the member of that committee could also defer to staff for a more lengthy discussion if people felt like that. So I just really, well, I'll leave it alone there.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Thoughts? Obviously, I've read the memo and understand I have the authority to appoint advisory committees with the concurrence of the commission, and I may ask, I guess, Scott Sloan, the way I interpret that to mean is that I could appoint committees, but then that would have to be ratified or affirmed at a subsequent commission meeting. Am I reading that correctly?
I think you could make those appointments and have them confirmed in the same meeting with proper notice.
Okay. And I'm, again, thinking out loud, which is probably dangerous, but to the extent there's a desire to do this, and I know it's not an action item, so we can't take a vote, but I'm super reluctant to do anything unless I feel like I have the majority of this commission supportive of that effort, i.e. I don't want to just haul off and do something because I've got the authority to do it, because that's not the way I do business. I want to know that there's a general consensus that this is what we want to do, and then what the next step looks like, Mr. Secretary.
So here's my suggestion, how we finish this conversation today, once everybody's done talking about it and providing more input, is that perhaps Mr. Sloan and Mr. Hanneman could have individual conversations with members to give you a kind of a good mood scan about, number one, do they think a committee structure would be helpful? If so, would they be willing to serve on different committees? And number three, do they have particular ideas about committees and their missions? And I think as long as those conversations are had individually, then you're okay.
Is that okay? Thank you for that suggestion. I assume, Mr. Sloan, you wouldn't have any issue with that, would you? Or do you see a problem with that?
No, there would be no violation of or deliberation outside of proceeding if staff has individual discussions with members.
Okay. While we're here as a collective, any other thoughts or comments in general about this? Okay. Did you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just during our research, you do have in the current policy the advisory committee option, but that should not be a bar if the will is there to ever establish standing committees with a defined scope and defined in the policy composition. That could also be an option for the commission to consider.
And is that something that the commission can do at a regularly scheduled meeting, or is that required?
We would, the procedure on that would be after those conversations you referenced earlier with staff, we could prepare a policy amendment, a new section based on those conversations for the commission's consideration at a future date. And that would be an action item at that time. Of course, the commission could review that, amend that during the meeting to their satisfaction prior to consideration.
Okay. I think I'll state out loud, I think that at this point, my preference would be that you and Lou discuss with individual commission members and then give me a sense or a flavor for what the majority of the commission wants to do, whether there's support for this initiative or not. And then based on that, we can decide what the appropriate next steps are, if that is okay with everyone. Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Any other discussion on this item?
No, I just want to thank Dr. House and Mr. Sloan for helping tee the conversation up today and allow us to have it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, we're at the end of our regular meeting agenda. And do we have a date for our next meeting, Dr. House? Do we?
Thursday, July 28th, back in Nashville.
Back in Nashville, okay. And if there are no other parting comments, I do want to take an opportunity to, again, I want to thank THEC staff, Dr. House, and everyone who's traveled from Nashville, who has contributed to the work of this commission. I feel like I can speak on behalf of the entire commission. We're really grateful for your hard work. You make us all very proud, and we're just deeply grateful for it. And I want to again thank Tennessee Tech for hosting us. It's been an outstanding meeting, and you know, I think the hope is, at least in general, that if we could have one on-campus meeting a year, you know, and try to visit every campus across the state, I think that would be a really excellent thing to do. So anyway, really grateful for it. Thanks for being here, and I will declare the meeting adjourned.